I hit live. Oh, so I just went live a little early because we were already talking and it was pretty cool. Ashley St. Clair, what's happening?
Hello, hello.
My video yesterday with Dickie Barrett got demonetized. I was telling you, and I assume it's because the word "dick" was in the title, but then I remonetized. I immediately said, let a human look at it, and they said yes, it's fine. So
justice for dicks.
Yeah, it'd be tough to have that name in modern culture with if your name was Dickie or had some sort of profanity, pseudo profanity in it, and you're trying to monetize your.
You can't name your kid Richard anymore. Why is Dick even a short name for? Why is Dick the short name for Richard?
When did it become profane? When did it become another word for penis? Is what I'm wondering.
Because someone really didn't like a guy named Richard.
Oh, maybe.
That's where it came from. A really bad Richard.
I really want to talk to you about reality today and your perceptions of reality, because I have a few questions. One, you changed your hair color, you went blonde and then dark again.
Now I'm back.
And you wear makeup.
Yeah,
and what do you notice about the way people interface with you when you alter your outward appearance?
It's interesting as a woman. What's really weird is I tend to get approached more when I'm not wearing makeup. And I was approached a little bit more when I was blonde. So you do notice some, but it's not really a big difference. But, for the most part, what's really funny is the weight thing. Typically, when I've been at my most unhealthiest mentally was when I was the thinnest, and I get all these compliments like, wow, you look so good, you look amazing, this and that. And I was so distraught mentally, and nobody really seems to care about that, but that seems to be the case for a lot of women too. They'll get this positive feedback on their appearance if they're not eating enough or they're not really taking care of themselves, but they look thin and they look good. So they get that positive reinforcement, even though they might not be doing the best.
Is it just because it creates a hip to waist ratio difference?
I don't know what it was. But at that point, I'm 5'6", and at that point, when I was just getting bombarded with people saying you look amazing, I was 114, which is incredibly underweight for my height. And I just remember it was everywhere I went, people would say, "Oh, you look amazing! I can't believe you've had a baby," this and that. And it was, I don't know. I think we just have a fascination with incredibly thin women, and I'm a little bit taller, so it looked even more slender. But yeah, I've noticed that a lot.
I kind of have an issue with projecting, creating the image of coolness. I don't know. Okay, so what I'm talking about is my set. It's kind of janky. It's a drawer. It kind of looks like it's in my closet. I'm in my closet. I'm not going to show you the whole closet because it's I got clothes over there.
So you have to come out of the closet every time you finish your podcast.
Every time. It's jarring. But thanks for reminding me that's what I'm doing. I'll think about it later. And my buddy, one of my friends, was like, "You need a set. You need a real set." And my initial response, he was like, "Get an AI set. Get a virtual background." And I thought, I don't want to do something fake. But then I was like, well, what does that mean, fake? Because even if it's digital or it's altered, it's still real.
Yeah, the line between reality and the metaverse is getting very thin, but I understand what you mean, just on the production value too, because I realize that a lot, especially when I go into the Fox studios, and it feels very dystopian in a lot of ways, because it's, you go in there and all your talking points are pre-approved, say this, don't say that. And then you go to this massive set and there's a million executives and producers watching on the screens, and everything's so overproduced, and you look in a way that they want you to look because they do your makeup, they do your looks. And that, to me, even though that's not AI, that's not really reality, is it? And it's not very honest, the high production values. But, people enjoy watching things that have a high production value. But I feel that way a lot too. I feel like it's not exactly honest. It's not exactly reality.
Yeah, because I used to say if a girl wears makeup that it's fake, but it's not fake. It's just a different version of reality.
Yeah, well, if we can't wear makeup, you guys aren't allowed to have beards, okay?
Oh, really?
Okay. You guys are hiding half your face with your beards. What's the difference?
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm gonna lay off.
Beards are makeup for men, okay?
Oh, well put. Okay.
Yeah, we don't know if you're hiding no chin under there.
Dang, it takes a lot of effort to shave, but not that much effort. I'm going to shave before Turning Point.
Oh, are
Maybe
you gonna
Friday.
go? I'll be
Yeah,
there.
I'm going on Saturday. What are your plans?
I'll be
What
there Saturday.
are you
I land
speaking?
around noon. No, just a special guest.
Like stage guest or just like
Just
going through the
there.
crowd?
Just
Yeah,
there.
that'll be fun. So like, it's not fake. It's not fake. Like AI is not the metaverse. It's not fake. It's just like I used to tell people like video games aren't like, they're still real. It's still real life. If you're playing a video game, you're just playing a digital part of real life.
Yeah, I mean, it's augmented reality. That's why so many of these video game companies, including like Epic and Roblox, are valued at such an insane level, right? I think Roblox is valued at something crazy like $40 million, which is insane, but it's for those the AI and metaverse capabilities, the ability to enwrap you in this new augmented reality that's becoming increasingly popular. But that's why they're valued the way they are.
Dude, did you see in like what's the Roblox? First of all, you may be following Roblox. Like the I don't know if you consider it slave labor, but that they'll have kids build the games for them and they'll get paid in Robux or whatever.
Yes, my little brother codes games on there.
I'm concerned about the merging of augmented reality of like people going in and getting like haptic feedback suits where they can feel the pressure. Like you put on gloves, you put on a helmet. So if someone touches your head.
Would you get one?
I don't know. It's kind of like going Neo in the Matrix. Like if I totally ignore it, that some stuff's going to go down in there that I don't want to go down. And I got to go in there to protect people. In that sense, I kind of want to plug my brain in and become part of the machine.
You're going to have it like stowed away in your closet in case you need to go and save everyone in the metaverse.
Yeah. Someone's going to have to go in there and reverse engineer the code in real time and be like, these things, because people are going to go in and forget they're in a virtual space. They'll be in there for so long, and they may even be on like pharmaceutical psychedelics that they'll like.
That's kind of what we're doing now, though, right? I mean, that's not much different than what's happening now. Everyone's pumped up on psychiatric medications. They're all online all the time. I don't know if you saw that graph. It talked about dating, how most people met their significant other or their spouses. And now it's just all online. None through friends, some through coworkers, but it's just entirely online now.
I saw that. It was like above 60% from like 2000 up. I mean, I don't know how many people got pulled in that or where that data came from. Were you familiar with that?
No, graph? I didn't dig into the sample size of the study, but we're all essentially kind of cyborgs now, right? I mean, how often are you without your phone or without technology or without any sort of upgrades technology-wise? There's hardly any of us that are born or living in this world with like default settings. We have some sort of enhancements.
Yeah, last night I was thinking about when I was born, there was already radio. Like I was reading about how radio started with amplitude modulation and frequency modulation. That's AM and FM frequency or amplitude modulation. So you're either making the wave go higher and lower at the same interval, like 111 with the same frequency, but it's just getting more amplified. That's AM radio. Or you're changing the interval and it's like going up and down faster or slower, but it's not going higher or lower. It's going the same height. That's frequency modulation.
Yeah, you couldn't pay me to figure that out. That's what we have meant for.
And I was just born like listening to radio like it was normal. Like I was just like, this is reality. I didn't.
Isn't that crazy though? Everything, if there was some sort of cyber apocalypse, we all be done for. We're so reliant on it.
Yeah,
From
dude.
Phone calls to internet to, even refrigeration. Everything's so wild nowadays, and we just take it for granted.
Yeah, on the after show on IRL last night, somebody was asking about like Civil War and like what it would look like. And after the show, I was like, in reality, the biggest threats would be starvation, dehydration, and infection. Not necessarily bombs and guns. I mean, that might be part of it, but I think that most of what would happen in the situations is like if the water supply goes out and you don't have roads or supermarkets, like that's. And especially if people know where the farms are and they go there immediately to take them by force, then like, so that's
in cities like New York, we'd just be done for.
Man,
we have no ability to provide on our own or live like the savage man.
I went out in the sun earlier because I was trying to get some. My voice has been a little messed up, and I brought this thing with me. It's a nebulizer.
That looks like one of those Febreze plugins that you put in the wall.
it's pure cyborg. I was like, but it's healing me. So like, it's not all bad. You know, like the cyborg nature of our reality isn't bad necessarily.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy because there's so many, like, especially on the right and the uber conservative people who are warning against transhumanism and all this. And it's like, well, we're already kind of there. And what is your suggestion to stop this? Do you want all the technology that you're using right now to complain about to go away? We're already there, it seems like.
Someone was telling me there's a difference between transhumanism and post-humanism, and that transhumanist is like your cell phone. You're using technology beyond the human body, like even producing fire, rubbing sticks together. That's like a transhumanist. I maybe that's an extreme example, but then the post-humanists are like, we are no longer Homo sapien. Now we are a machine. We are part of a digital ether.
Well, let me ask you about this, because last night, I can't believe I didn't know this. I just found out last night that we have no idea. We don't know definitively how the hell they built the Great Pyramids.
How do you think they
Do you know
did it?
that? I don't know, but they had to have some sort of technology well beyond our comprehension because we haven't been able to replicate it. We have no idea how they built the Great Pyramids.
A couple of things I've thought is that they had hot air balloons, like, and that they set up like 16 giant hot air balloons with like platforms that could lift 8-ton blocks.
How would a hot air balloon lift like multi-tons of limestone and everything else? How would they do that?
If you had enough of them and they were big enough, like there's this thing called the Vimana. Have you ever heard of the Vimana?
No.
It's an ancient, I'll show you. It's an ancient flying machine from the Hindu texts. And apparently the king, the sultan, would fly around on this thing. And it's like a city, a flying city. I'll pull up some pictures of it. This is just from the texts. So they got like this thing. No one really knows.
There's no way this is real.
It sounds fantastical, but
it looks like a Hindu Death Star. What is this?
I don't know. I don't know if they used vacuum lift or if they just had hot air balloons and they just flew around on a platform, or if they had ion thrusters and propellers.
Now, do they have actual evidence that this thing existed, or is this just tales that have been passed along?
I think it's just tales. I don't think they've ever found physical evidence, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Once I heard of the Vimana, I started thinking of flying machines as like, because technically propellers aren't that complicated. There's just a couple of pieces of wood on a turning mechanism. Steam power is super basic. Getting steam to push a propeller. So maybe they had steam, but then I'm like, and hot air balloons are pretty basic technology. If you can produce like burn stuff and produce enough heat. I mean, I don't know.
Hindu hot air balloons.
Hindu hot air balloons. So the pyramids could have been built with this kind of tech.
With Hindu hot air balloons?
Yeah, with Hindu hot air balloons, dude. That's it. That's it exactly.
There we go. That's it.
The other option is, I was thinking a couple of days ago, Jimmy Corsetti posts a lot of cool stuff about this. He's a great follow. He's like deeply involved in searching. That they sent like 16-ton statues. Somehow they got these statues are like 20 tons or something. There's 8-ton blocks and then these giant statues all carved. That maybe they built giant water channels like hundreds of miles in like wood, like big wooden channels of water that they could float the things down.
That's one of the theories for the Great Pyramids, because a lot of the material came from like 500 miles away. So everyone's like, how the hell did they get there? Maybe it was from, the water nearby, because there was allegedly a harbor. But I don't know. I just found it fascinating that we have no idea how they did that. Imagine what other engineering feats that have just been lost through time and history.
I know. I was thinking about Atlantis a lot. And like, if they were tapping, like if they figured out radio frequency, like Hertz is the guy, the German scientist that figured out the thing in like the 1860s. If they tapped that and they started sending radio and they had radio, like, because they dominated the globe through the oceans. So maybe they were communicating with their ships via radio somehow. But that's a little, there's no evidence, but the whole thing got smeared by the flood. Like, the Great Flood. Do you
believe the flood happened?
Yeah, there's so much evidence of it that
every civilization seems to have a story about it too, which is incredibly interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one of the theories as to why the dinosaurs stopped growing as big, and other creatures stopped growing as big, is that there were changes in the oxygen in the atmosphere after a great flood.
Really?
That's one of the theories.
So they used to
Some
grow,
say.
they were huge and then they started to get smaller?
Because they didn't have as much oxygen.
What, like, is that before they were wiped out?
I guess.
Or after?
I don't know. Where on the timeline is the meteor wiping out the dinosaurs in relation to the Great Flood?
It was a long time before. It was like 63 million years is the dinosaurs. And they think it was like a comet that struck the Yucatan. Here, I'll pull up Google Maps. This is I do this in my free time, and I'll do it while I'm working too. Like here, that the something struck here and wiped out
every dinosaur ever.
Yeah, except for birds survived, like the ones that were very high.
I think a lot of the dinosaurs had feathers.
Yeah.
I feel like the common depiction of a dinosaur is not accurate.
Yeah. Like raptors had feathers.
And we have hardly any full skeletons of dinosaurs.
Oh, they're just like the ones that they
most of them are not complete skeletons.
Interesting.
They're just piecing it together.
Dude, this is what makes me think the dinosaur thing I have such little info on, but they were probably real. I'm sure they were real. Like really.
Yeah, dinosaurs were real for sure. I mean, that would be a huge psyop to just psyop everybody that dinosaurs exist.
Yeah, big lizards. I mean, I think they used to have like, do you ever play Dungeons and Dragons?
Yes.
There's like giant spiders. You fight like giant rats and stuff. Like, I think it used to be, maybe it was an oxygenation thing in the atmosphere, but like the humans had to fight. Like there's that, the terror bird. Have you ever heard of that thing?
No.
This thing's crazy. I'll pull it up. Terror bird. Yeah, dude. There's actually a name for it now. So the terror.
My new gamer tag, terror bird.
Yeah, dude. This thing was gigantic. Apparently, I guess they have fossils of it. And this wasn't that long ago, I don't think, but this thing was huge. It was like a huge land roaming bird, almost like a raptor looking, but it was bigger. And I wish I could get some reference for it. And they would like just slaughter. Like they called them terror birds because they would probably eat and kill anything that walked.
Yeah, that would eat you for sure.
And so I think that humans just systematically extinguished but probably what happened was the Great Flood that we have in the myths, which was 12,800 years ago. That's like when the comets struck North America and North Asia and melted the ice caps and just flooded the planet. It happened twice. It happened 12,800 years ago, and then 800 years after that, hypothetically, or something like that. So there were two floods, and that's why
there were two floods. Why
yeah.
do they only talk about one?
I don't know. They call it because probably I don't know. Maybe the human memory had been wiped out the first time, but there were some survivors, and then the second flood just completely decimated the survivors, and they were like, all they remembered was just a flood. But I think it's the torrid meteor stream came around, and then just like fragments of the torrid meteor stream hit the planet, and then because we go through it every year, twice a year, and then 800 years later, for whatever reason, they smacked again. But that might have wiped out a bunch of the big animals, and so a lot of these things were killed off for us, like the giant tarantulas and the giant, huge saber-tooth things.
I could do without those.
Yeah, the short-nosed bear and stuff like that, all the megafauna in North America. But I think humans went around and just extinguished a lot of this stuff, like the Neanderthals.
That's what we like doing. We like doing that to everything, including ourselves. So
yeah, it's a very racist species in a lot of ways. Because I think about the Neanderthals, and they would come and like steal human children and like kill and eat people, but that could all be propaganda. And maybe there was just a war.
There's a psyop against Neanderthals.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with. I'm putting my flag in the ground on this. They have no
justice for the Neanderthals.
Yes, the burden of proof is on the claimant that we were the good guys. I don't know. This is I'll pull up this. This is what I think about Atlantis. How deep do you go into Atlantis, or have you gone?
I have not gone very much into Atlantis.
This is Africa, and then you zoom in here, Western Mauritania. You see all these what they're called striations, these long straight lines.
Yeah.
This to me is there's a lot of salt. Like right here, you can see a big salt basin right here. This is all like oceans. Well, I don't know if it's all ocean sand, but it's apparently ocean. They find
So Atlanta
seashells.
was in Africa?
Yeah, they think it's right here. You zoom in here.
Who is they? Who thinks it's in Africa?
Particularly Graham Hancock kind of made this statement.
Oh, what is that?
This is what they call the Eye of the Sahara. And they found this via satellite in like the late 90s. And they're like, what the hell is this? It's 3 rings of land. You've got your center island. Then there's like a dip where there used to be these salt out here. So this is like, and that they say Atlantis was 3 rings of land with water in it. So I'm like, okay, here's the water, here's the water, here's the water. And then this looks like they dug it out into the ocean down here. Look, even this, and then you see all these ancient riverways and stuff that got, so what happened was with the Great Flood pushed all this sand and mud up onto the land and smeared everything and covered it and annihilated it. But that this, and like over here, this looks man-made to me. Like they dug out to kind of create like, here's their little entryway. And then they had like a waterway to protect this area.
That was like Atlantis Junior.
Yeah, all this. So this is like the capital in my estimation. This is the capital. And then these were the farmlands that surrounded it. This is all on a plateau. All the stuff here is below Atlanta, below the plateau. This is all on a plateau. It's a little odd to look at from this angle. So what happened was all this water came in and it pushed, but because it was up on a plateau, it was preserved from the smearing. It wasn't completely covered. But so we found it somehow. We spotted it. And
you then did it. There it is.
Congratulations, Ashley. We made it. And like
Ian Crossland and Ashley Tinkler find Atlantis.
Show everyone. It looks like the water, like they dug this channel out, these ancient waterways. What I like to do is pull up.
I feel like you're just like making shit up, but you know, I'm gonna go with it.
Yeah. Look, like this thing here. It's better. These are mountains right here, but this looks like they carved up. This is something I like showing people. I'll show you too. What the best way to do it is to pull up what's called a topographic map, as well as just a Google map, because the topographic map actually shows you the height of the place. Let me see if I can get this. Yeah, here we go. So this is topographic. Let me see if I can pull it.
See it.
Get ready to rock. This is a topograph. So here's the eye. The red stuff.
Atlantis.
Yep. The red stuff is. Do I want to? Let me see if I can get this and then this. So here's what we were just looking at. And now I'll throw on the topography so you can see. This is up high. The red stuff is up high. So this was like the plateau surrounding Atlantis.
Almost in the valley.
Yeah. Yeah, Atlantis was in like this deep portcullis. They think what happened was there's an underground eruption that didn't like breach the surface and caused ripple patterns. Whether it was like
have just been like a volcano or something similar.
Yeah, or a water geyser.
Wouldn't that have created the same pattern?
Yeah, and there's one on Mars. There's one of these on Mars. Like it's almost
there's an Atlantis on Mars? Yeah,
like the same, this similar shape. And so I go through and I'm like, oh, this is so cool to look at. All these like. So this was all like ocean apparently, and I come down here to the plateau's tip. Here you see this land. I'm like, who lived up here in this cool area? But this was all water before. This was all ocean water before it got smeared. And then like they dug this channel out probably, and they had these ancient rivers coming up, and then they come up to here, and they dug this thing.
Do you know that they dug any of this though? It just
looks
looks like that.
It's so straight. It's such a straight line that I don't think like this was a river.
But there's straight rivers, right? There's straightish rivers.
It's straightish. This river like coming down here is straightish, and then it curves off to the west. But it looks like then they came in.
Does.
Yeah, but then they came in and then they dug a walkway to where it curved off right here, and then And as you can see, this goes down. This is going uphill. This like, and I don't know if they had like
that's the path they took for the pyramids.
I think that they took it from they would sail in from the ocean here, and then they would catch a river down here, and this river actually. Let's see how far I can find it. They came in down this giant channel, and then they took one of these rivers, particularly this one that got cut. You can see how the rivers got covered by sand, but the topography shows you. It travels all the way around up here, to here, and then they started going up the mountain, and they dug up to where the river breached west, and then they tapped into this, and they followed it up, and then they get all the way up to the top, and this is like where the plateau begins, is right here,
That's
And
where
then
the
that,
sacrifices started.
oh, right at the tip, they're like, you may not pass unless you have something to offer.
You shall not pass.
It's such a defensible terrain. And then once you're up on
And
the
then there's
plateau,
no other paths. Look at that.
yeah, that was like a main entryway up onto the.
Oh, when you look at it from that angle, though, it does look very, very. That does look like a path.
Yeah, I wonder if they
Going
had
up the
like
mountain.
pulleys, if they had rope trains and stuff.
Well,
where
they
like,
definitely had pulleys and levers and ramps and all that.
I would imagine.
I mean, they weren't like, the idea of like caveman bonk of anyone back then is a little absurd. We were actually quite advanced.
Yeah, dude.
Again, we had technologies that we still can't figure out how they did a lot of these things.
I wonder if they used vibration and they tapped into like the vibration of thing like cymatic. Are you familiar with cymatics?
Yes.
Well, they'll like vibrate things to create shapes and patterns. And if they were messing with the Earth's like vibration and that they caused like a pull, like if they, I don't know exactly, but if they messed up and that's what caused the Earth's magnetic field to go down and that's why the comets hit, or if it was more coincidental.
Yeah, I don't know that them messing with seismatics was why the meteor hit, but I would say they definitely had technologies that have been lost.
What do you think they had?
I don't know. They could have done a variety of things. They could have figured out how to use different technologies that we have now, just in very different ways. But we have no clue. No clue. Thousands of years, nobody can figure out how they built the Great Pyramids, how they had a lot of these engineering feats.
Yeah, and a lot of the pyramid stuff is like multiple generations of builders. They'll have like the king's chamber inside the Great Pyramid is made out of granite. It's like this room that's like, it looks like it was there long before and that they came along and they buried it with limestone. And that's what the current modern day pyramids are, is like burial mounds, because they didn't like that thing for some reason. It was like a memory of an ancient culture that was dominant. Like maybe it was an Atlantean bastion where
roads lead to Atlantis.
Yeah, maybe because like Athens, the Greeks were like the survivors and they talk shit about Atlantis. Like, so maybe they're just trying to like make people forget about it.
Why do they talk shit about Atlantis?
Because Atlantis was probably like the imperial annihilators of Earth, is my guess. But like the Great Pyramid.
What evidence do you have that
all in my head?
Atlantis were the imperial
yeah.
colonizers of Earth.
That's what I'm thinking. The way they like, you see that statue of Atlas, the king of Atlantis.
Do you think they were humans? Maybe it was the Nephilim.
I think what do you think the Nephilim are?
I don't know.
My guess is that they were inbred.
I knew you were gonna have something to say about the Nephilim.
Yeah, I think my guess is that they were inbred humans that had lots of nourishment and that they were able to grow really tall and had really high intelligence, and they had ancient technology like flying machines, like hang gliders and hot air balloons, and like even electrical current. Like they had these things called the Baghdad battery, where they would take a copper pot and fill it up with vinegar or wine or some acidic liquid, and then they'd put an iron rod in it and then wrap it with copper wire, and it would produce an electrical charge. And then they'd link them, set them all next to each other, and have a bunch of these clay pots and produce pretty intense electrical charges. There's an Egyptian hieroglyph I'll pull up. Egyptian light bulb.
I think the Nephilim were Hillary Clinton's grandparents.
Oh, yeah. Some of us are descended from Neanderthals for sure. And some of us are descended from like really intelligent ancestry. This is an Egyptian. I don't know if you've ever seen this before. This is wild. This always freaks me out. It's called the Dendera light. The Dendera lights. So there's this hieroglyph here. I wish I could pull this up. Let me see if I can pull up bigger. You can see it on the screen. They found this in somewhere in Egypt, and it's this giant dude this is like Nephilimish, like big guy, had a lot of nutrition. Then there's these little guys, and they were probably like just from, relative slaves. Their ancestors weren't nourished, so they were growing to be like 4'9" or 4'7". These guys are like 5'8", and they'll draw it. Maybe they draw it out of scale, but small people and big people, and the big dude's holding what looks like a big light bulb.
It really does.
And this is like
a
filament.
The prongs. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're holding it up, these guys, and then whatever this is, I think Corin Nemec suggested this might be a battery, or like something's holding it up. It looks like an ankh or like some kind of interesting piece of technology here. I think they found like these might be copper.
Yeah.
And then this wire, it's attached to like what looks like a big box. And is that box filled
Power
with like,
supply.
what's that?
Power supply.
Yeah. Yeah. Like some sort of like the Ark of the Covenant was like, apparently if you would touch it, it would kill you. So I think it was like highly
They had a
electrified.
giant light bulb attached to the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
I think more likely they may have had technologies that we don't quite know about or understand. What would be the point of attaching a giant light bulb to the Ark of the Covenant? I don't think they would let anybody do that.
So they could build without fire underground or inside. They could have lights without having to, because there's no like smoke in the pyramids. There's no torch marks or indication of.
Really?
Yeah. So, and I'm trying to picture like, did they light up the pyramids from did they have big lights like shining on the pyramids from outside when you would go?
Maybe they just left the top open and they waited and they only worked during the day.
That's what they would. Oh, maybe. Yeah. Because they could work 24 hours with light.
Yeah. Well, it had to have been built from the bottom up. So the top would be open, exposed to the light.
And then they capped it with gold at some point.
Yeah. It wouldn't be dark in there until they capped it.
Okay. That's an interesting counterpoint. And
if it's open, you probably wouldn't have many torch marks because it's not closed.
Yeah, well, you could.
But I guess mirrors. In the chambers, you probably would.
Yeah, when you go into little rooms, if you're blocking off room by room, I don't know how they built it or what it was. If it was just like a dumping burial ground or something.
I will vote for whoever figures that out.
Dude,
solves that mystery.
I want to go there. We're actually kind of planning something.
You're gonna go there? No, you're gonna go there and figure it out for us.
Yeah, I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna take a bunch of ayahuasca, and then I'm gonna vibrate with the machine. Because apparently
I don't think that's legal there.
I'll do it where it's legal.
You're going to wind up in an Egyptian prison, and we're going to have to post your GoFundMe link.
I won't do it there.
Crossland.
Yeah. Vibrate me to freedom. I won't do it there. I'll do it where it's legal. Like we're going
to have to work on the tagline there, Ian.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Vibrate me to freedom is not exactly.
That's how I work. I'll give you the raw cut, and then you can refine it into something palatable.
Yes.
But I want to go there because Corin was telling me that these things were like, what do they call them? Projection. Like, have you ever heard of like astral projection?
No.
It's this like thing where they go into like meditative trances and their consciousness goes somewhere else and they can see things like.
Oh, yes.
And the CIA, I think, works on this stuff where they'll have people like project.
Yes, didn't they just release something not that long ago about astral projection from the CIA?
I don't know.
Hang on.
All right. And that while you're looking that up, the Native Americans would apparently draw circles in the ground and then step into these circles. And would it like enhance their ability to project their consciousness outwards?
Yeah, declassified in part in 2016.
Whoa. You can send me a link in the private chat. I'll pull it up.
Yeah, this was pretty recent. It says this is from the CIA website. Such astral projection has already been accomplished in laboratory settings.
Really?
What? Wait, I'll send you that link as well. Hang on, here's the first one.
Nice.
And here's this one.
Oh, crap.
Crazy.
Yeah, there's something to it. I don't think that they would talk about it as much as they do if it wasn't something to it. What is this?
Astral projection.
Purpose, intelligence. Agency takes on intelligence in the astral projection caper. So this is like, I'm having a hard time reading that one. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to be able to get through that one, but
let me see.
I knew that was recent, 2016.
Would you plug your brain into a machine if it let you read like papers in a split second?
Probably. I could lie and say it wouldn't, but I probably would.
You think so? You're comfortable with are you comfortable with the neural net?
If it had been tested enough properly, some other people were guinea pigs first. Yeah, probably.
I'm really into it. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't
I
want to
figured
plug.
you would be.
Yeah, I'm similar probably to what you're thinking. I don't want to plug nodes like wires into my brain and then do some irreparable damage. But if people start to do it,
Our output is just so slow. And that really bothers you. How many times are there things that you feel like you could write within minutes or seconds if you didn't have such slow output typing or writing?
yeah, for sure. Like, and listening too. Like I can listen to 3 videos at once and kind of understand them. And like
Are
2
you a
videos,
2x podcaster? I'm a 2x podcaster. I always listen
surprisingly, what you like 2x better?
Yes, 100%.
Wow, I should do it. No, I have
Yeah,
not yet.
you can listen to so much more, especially if you're good at watching a few things at once.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I
a
wonder
movie
if
is great.
like plugging in and being able to listen to like 50 things at once, because you're not actually listening, you're just writing the code in your brain, would be good. The thing is, if people start doing it, I feel like I have to keep up.
Yeah, it's kind of like Adderall.
Like other people, like you have to keep up.
Yeah, if you're in
But
politics, most of those people are on Adderall. They
are
are
they
on speed.
really?
Oh my goodness, yes. Are you kidding me?
Is
I
that
mean, there's an Adderall shortage right now that's been going on since October 2022, and I used to take it a long time ago. I don't take it anymore, but everybody's on Adderall. In the
I
corporate world, in politics, they are all on speed. And the most damaging thing about Adderall is it's essentially legal meth. Um, but the scary part is it inhibits your brain's natural ability to produce dopamine. So these people who are taking it for years, they're taking it for prolonged periods of time. They're actually impacting their brain's ability to produce the happiness drug on its own. So they have these really low lows when they're coming off of Adderall, when they try to quit Adderall. It's a very dangerous drug that millions and millions of Americans are prescribed and on every single day. They have to keep upping the dose. They start at 5 milligrams. I know people who started at 5 milligrams. They're on 40 now. Because you have to, your body builds a tolerance. You have to keep going. It's insane.
I've taken it a few times just recreationally. My friend gave me some, and I took at a party, and I was like, wow, I am the life of the party. The first time I went, I was like, it's so easy to talk to everybody. And then I went to another party like a few weeks later. So I was like, well, I've got to take some Adderall if I'm going to be the life of the party this time. And I took it, and I wasn't the life of the party that night. And I'm like, oh, and then I got constipated from the Adderall. And I was like, I'm done with it. I think I took it 3 times, and I was like, I'm not gonna.
That's worse than not being able to be happy. Being constipated, right?
So what was your Adderall journey?
So my family they all have ADHD, and I had ADHD, and it was incredibly helpful for its purpose of helping you focus, and your productivity is increased tremendously when you're on this drug. It does work for that. However, I would notice, like, I would get mood swings, I would be angrier, I would get very depressed at the end of the day after I took it. And I didn't want to do that anymore. I was like, you know what? There's natural supplements. So now I take like Alpha Brain. Joe Rogan promotes that a lot from On It. Really great supplement, and just healthier lifestyles, getting more sleep, drinking caffeine instead, things like that. But I noticed, and I was self-aware enough to notice what I was doing. And then I started doing research, and I was like, oh, I'm damaging my brain forever by taking this. So yeah, I'm more productive for the corporate world. I'm able to be a more productive rat in this race, but it was damaging my brain's ability to produce dopamine.
How long were you on it?
A few years, maybe 2-3 years.
Did it destroy you psychologically when you got off of it?
No, because I also, even when I used it, I was aware of how strong of a drug it was. So I wouldn't take it every day, which I was prescribed for it every day, but I would take a half of what I was prescribed and take it maybe 2 or 3 times a week. So I was still mindful of it even then, but even with limited use of it, I was like, oh, I notice a come down at the end of the day. Why am I so much testier or angrier? And it was when the Adderall was wearing off.
Did you notice when you had a baby that it changed your physiology, like your psychology, and helped you calm? Did it calm you at all? Or
It did. Having a child really calmed me down. And I think part of it is too, it really just gives you a sense of purpose. you realize there's a lot of things that don't matter. So it kind of, at least for me, it put me on the right track of like, oh, I know very clearly this matters, this does not matter in the grand scheme of things, and creating a good life for my child, and what's an important issue to focus on to create a better world for my child. I think it really helped me in a lot of ways, having a child, just evening out, having a sense of purpose.
What was it, like 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, he's 2 now.
2. So like before that, because I met you like just like I guess a couple of years ago, but like before that, I saw some of your older videos. It was like somewhat partisan, political. Like you were like, and then what happened? Like then you had the baby, and then you seem to be like really focused and doing a lot of really good work right now.
Yeah, so I was much more in the swamp of politics before my kid. And first of all, working in the swamp of politics like that, you realize that a whole lot doesn't get done because everyone's just sitting around circle jerking each other. Even the people that are supposedly, good fighters on the left and the right, a lot of them are in it for very self-interested purposes. A lot of it, people are just in it to make money. There's a lot of money washing that goes on. There is a lot of wasted time and energy that goes on in politics, and a lot of moral bankruptcy. A lot of the things that I saw were just horrible. The way people were treated, the lack of humanity, the narcissism. And I remember very clearly when my son was, I believe, 3 months old, and I was looking at my computer, looking at what I was doing for work, and I'm looking back at my son, and I'm looking at the computer, and I'm like, I can't do this. And I quit my job that I had at that time. And I was like, I can't do this. And then eventually I ended up working for the Babylon Bee because I believed they were doing something culturally that mattered. It was a company with good values. Seth was a man of integrity. All the leadership at that company had integrity. So it really was like, I want to do something that matters. I don't want to be in this swamp of politics talking about the polls and this and that. I just didn't care as much after I had my kid. I was like, what really matters is humanity, is being good people, is fighting for the values that we all believe in. Not, I'll never forget one of a very prominent figure on the right who works in consulting looked me in the eye and said, well, it doesn't really matter if we lose because the opposition party makes more money. And that's what they said to me. And I was just dumbfounded that he could even say this. But that's how truly a lot of these people think.
Oh, so it's mostly about making money. Well, I don't know if to say that, but for that guy, it was about making money for the party as opposed to controlling social pressure.
Correct. For most of them, I would say.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So since you got out of it, are you like, what's your black pill, white pill ratio?
I think I'm definitely more white pilled. I do believe that there's hope. I believe people are waking up in a good way. I don't agree with the people who have this sort of cynicism and fear mongering about the state of the world. I believe some of that is necessary just for people to see the reality of things. But I think it's really important that we stay optimistic because I don't really think you can affect positive change if you're not optimistic about the future. If you think everything's going just to hell anyways, then what are you really fighting for?
Yep. That's last night I was talking and I was like telling people what I don't want to see. And then after the show on IRL, I was like, what I don't want is for this to become nuclear. Like before our birthing into the spacefaring civilization, there's going to be a contraction, just like in the female body before she gives birth, there's a contract. And like, is that contract? What I don't want that contraction to be is, and I listed things off. And then after the show, I'm like, why would I just go around telling people what I don't want to see? I've got limited time and I can project any kind of data. Like it's not, but like, you're right. A little bit of that is okay. As like hey, watch out for this. But then really, I think I got to focus on what I want to see.
Yes. Well, and the right is particularly bad about this, right? Because we're continually just responding to things rather than going on offense. And this is really bad for the culture as well, because we don't have solutions to the top issues that people care about in this country. They care about affording rent. They care about affording groceries. They care about affording healthcare. I have yet to see a mainstream Republican provide a tangible solution for healthcare, a tangible solution for education. And, so many on the right want to say, well, they took the student loans, they did this. Okay, well, why did they do that? They did that because an entire generation before them told them this was the only way they could have a career and make money. So I do have sympathy for all of these people who have student loans that are through the roof because we allowed costs to be this high by getting the government involved in the first place, and subsidizing these universities. So, but conservatives have no solution to this other than we're not going to pay for it.
What do you think about Corey DeAngelis's move for school choice?
I think it's good, but I fundamentally disagree with the culture we've created around school and parenthood and work, frankly, because what a dystopian society that we live in right now, that the reality for most parents is that you are never going to be the person who spends the most time with your child. And that is the reality of it. They're going to spend time at school with their teachers from the moment most of these kids are 1, 2, 3 years old. They're in daycares, they're in schools. You don't have the ability to raise your child. And school has really just become glorified daycares for many of these people. I don't think children need to be in school as long as they are. I don't think they need to be in school every day of the week. And that, while I think Corey has a good solution, I am an advocate for school choice. I think there's a deeper cultural issue that we're sending our kids to any school for 5 days a week, every day, 8 hours a day. And we have no ability really to raise our children on our own. We don't have the ability for most people to raise our children on a single income. That is abysmal. And those are issues that I feel need more attention. And those we should be fundraising for. We should be funding initiatives to change that culture instead of, let's just be able to choose which government school they go to.
That's a really good point about 5 days a week, 8-hour days.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's insane. Not only is it like, this is just getting this out of the way, the Rockefeller schools, so John Dewey, the school system of like building people.
It was built by Rockefeller. Yes. And you're aware of this, and maybe you should reiterate for people who are not, but they built this not to create philosophers or creatives or people who are good for society. The Rockefeller structured the school system to create better factory workers. And we have since maintained that. And these drones, and then young boys. I have a young son. Young boys in particular, they're drugged up with a lot of these ADHD medications because they're not meant to sit in a classroom for 8 hours a day. They're not meant to do that. But when they can't do that, when they're restless, when they're talking, that's a bad kid. They need to be drugged up. They need psychiatric medications. They need to be disciplined for not sitting in a classroom for 8 hours straight and not saying a word. That's inhumane, in my opinion. I feel like the modern school system is incredibly inhumane.
It made me very subservient, like probably unnecessarily subservient and fearful, like of other people, and like resentful of because the other kids, like it was like a constant competition to like, who's the best kid, who's the most popular, who's the one that can yell at all the other kids on the playground, who's the one who's got the ball, who's the one. And it's like, I just want to get along and like do stuff.
Well, and most of it's very arbitrary. I remember even when I was in university, I would argue with my professors because I'm paying thousands of dollars for these courses. I preferred to not go to class and read the slides at home. I learned better that way. I got better grades that way. And that was always an issue. And I would have to fight with them about the attendance score. I'm like, well, if I don't have to go, if I don't go and I'm still scoring higher than most of the class by not going, what is the point of attendance? And it was all very arbitrary. And I had to fight with most of these people on that issue. Yeah, it usually worked. But, for kids in grade school or middle school or high school, you have truancy laws. If your kid's out a certain number of days, you may go to jail.
Yeah, I had a class in college where it was astronomy, and it was so easy. I just stopped going, and then they were going to fail me. But I was like, hey, I went to talk to the professor. I was like, is there any? He's like, if you get an A on the because I skipped the midterm, I think, and they're like, it's an automatic fail. I was like, please, can I do anything? He's like, if you get an A on the, so I just studied and got an A, and it was like,
yes,
I don't need to sit there for 50 hours to learn like a textbook. I can just read I can learn it once. And time, like, this is what you're talking about, 5 days a week, 8-hour days. Time. Like, what is time? Time is a concept. Yeah. It's motion. Like, things are moving and they're spinning. the earth is turning, it's turning around the sun. And we're like, okay, we'll call that one day. We'll just create that's an interval now. And now but like, that doesn't mean that you have to like your thoughts can speed up. You can learn twice as fast and then you can learn twice as fast as that. And then you can learn twice as fast as that. So you can learn like 10 times, 8 times faster. I think like doctors even could learn the data as fast as they can. And then if they can prove that they know how to do the surgery and like testing and like practice, why 13 years? It's like this old prophet model.
It doesn't make any sense. Even when you go for, any degree you're going to get, you have prerequisites that you have to take that have nothing to do with it. You're going to school for philosophy and you have to take geology or math or this or that. It doesn't make any sense. It's not very specialized, but I particularly take issue with grade school, middle school, high school, and the way in which they do that and how often we just don't have our children.
Well, what do you envision is the best schooling method for your kid or like kids in general right now?
I think you should be able to have your kid at home and have, a tutor or some sort of system online, something like that, where you can be with your kid. I don't think there's any better parent than a parent. And so many times you see these kids, they go into school and they're not having a good time, especially now in a brand new world. I was at an event not that long ago with a bunch of teachers where there are a bunch of school teachers, and they're sitting there at the table complaining about the children, saying, well, they all say they have anxiety. They all say they have depression now, almost saying this disparagingly so about these middle schoolers. And I'm like, of course they do. Of course they have depression. Of course they have anxiety. They're in this whole new world where they can't turn off the matrix. They're all this feedback, all these inputs that we were never made to receive. Our kids are receiving this all the time from their peers at school, and the people around them. It's incredibly overwhelming. So I don't blame a lot of these kids for the issues they're dealing with, because our mental diet is so poor. Our mental diet is just as poor as our nutrition nowadays. It's the same thing. And I do genuinely feel bad for them. I don't think public school is a conducive environment for healthy children anymore.
Especially with the internet. Like,
yes,
in the night, I was born in 79. So like in the 90s, there wasn't really a lot of option. Like if I wanted to learn information, I could go to the library, but that was books. And then like, I could just also go to school and get the books and have someone like explain the book to me. It was a little easier than trying to get the book, understand the book on my own. And the idea of homeschooling was still kind of foreign. Like, I don't know, my mom would do the laundry in the day and go run errands in the day, and my dad would be working. So they weren't really at home a lot during the day. So that would have been, I mean, they could have, there were people that did it, but with the internet, all that information is like, it's already there for the most part. And kids got to know that going into, like, if they're 7 and they're maybe, I don't know, like, if you are introducing your son to the internet, like, in fact, I'd rather just talk about that. Like, what is your plans and what do you do with the internet with them?
I hope that he has a healthy relationship with it. It is interesting. Obviously, he's only 2 years old, but at his dad's house, his dad has an Alexa. And my son goes near my speaker. I don't have an Alexa or any of those systems in my home because they freak me out. But he walks up to my JBL speaker and he goes, "Hey, Alexa, play Ghostbusters." And I'm like, this kid already understands how to work certain technologies because he hears his dad talking to Alexa, or he knows how to work my phone. He knows how to unlock it. He knows how to hang up on calls. He'll tell me, FaceTime data. So it's really interesting to just see his little brain understanding the way certain technology works already. But I don't think the answer is to hide him from it, rather just to be very honest about what technology is, and that it's, kind of a love-hate relationship. You have to have a healthy relationship with technology.
Like that there's things, it's like, I don't know if you would consider it dangerous, the internet. I mean, it probably should be considered dangerous. The way that people get lost in it and can doom scroll and get stuck on information instead of like feeling. But like, the stuff that's out there, like a link pops up and just an image. If a kid sees an image once, that can like alter their reality forever after.
And their brain chemistry, which is particularly damaging when it comes to pornography with young men online, because these young boys, I forget the study, I think for most young boys, the first exposure they have to pornography now is between 9 and 10 years old on the internet. That's insane. That is a really, really, that has devastating consequences on the way young men are viewing sex and women. And what's particularly interesting is the feminist push for this sex work and pornography. But then most of these young men are developing their opinions on sex and female sexuality based on a really grotesque depictions of it, based on very demeaning depictions of it through pornography online.
Yeah, I was like, one of my friends has a stepdaughter that's like 14, I think, at this point, and he was saying that she saw something, and I was like, well, what did you do to deal with it? And he was like, well, she told me about it and described it, and I was like, did you ask her to show it to you? And he was like, no. And I thought maybe that is if a kid sees something, like, empathize. That's the best way to empathize, is to understand, like, I know exactly what you saw. If they have the ability to show, because they might have saw it at school and they don't know how to, or saw it out there somewhere and they don't know how to replicate it to show you. They can only explain it. And it's like, she had the things, and like, they don't even know what it is. And they're like, but they know it's weird, and like, probably.
And kids are so good with technology nowadays. I wrote about this a while ago, last year, the year before, with the Post Millennial. But there's a group called the Social Media Victims Law Center, and they deal with a lot of these children and families who have been victims. Either they are no longer here because of the effects of social media on their mental health, or they survived, but the consequences were very devastating. And in the case of Alexis Spence, her parents did everything the quote unquote right way. They had parental controls on everything. They took the phone at night. She didn't have it. She would go out of her room and take it. She had the Instagram app hidden as a calculator on the phone. So kids are really innovative in getting around these things as well. But again, it's like, how do you have a kid that survives without being proficient in technology nowadays? Because they go to school and they have to use the computers, they have to use the iPads, you have to have a phone, because God knows what's going to happen nowadays. So it's scary. And none of these companies, especially like Meta and these other platforms, who are contributing to the damaging effects of technology on young children, they're not held accountable. They're not doing anything about this. We see this right now. Disney pulls ads on X, and they increase their spend on Meta and Instagram 40%, despite their reels being shown next to GROOMING content, next to exploitation content, and they do nothing.
The networks didn't like, they didn't respond, or did they issue a response or anything?
They have not even addressed those issues. And there are other studies that showed Meta platforms were used in 80% of child exploitation cases. 80%. Meta platforms were used overwhelmingly, and they just don't address it. They would rather talk about Elon Musk's tweets. And that's the morality of the current society that we're living in now. And that's how little regard we have for creating a safe internet for our children.
Man, how do you, like, as an open network, when you're like, anything that's legal can be on the network, where do you draw the line? Because like, if I was a kid and I saw a carrot going into like a hole in like a peach, I'd be like I would know, but it would be totally legal. But but they wouldn't show it on TV because it would be a little too graphic. But now with the internet, like on Minds or like on Twitter, like I actually loaded up Twitter and saw like porn in my recommended video. I was like, what in the fuck is this shit? I did not expect.
Yeah, there needs to be way more censoring on that content, in my opinion. Especially when people are allowed to create an account at 13 years old, and they do have that material on there.
Is that on Meta? Can they do 13 and up on Meta platforms, Facebook and Instagram?
Yes.
Dude,
but they don't have any verification. And how are you going to verify a 13-year-old's age? But like in the case of Alexis Spence that I mentioned earlier, she got an account at 11. And when they asked her, her parents asked her how she did this, she's like, well, I just put that I was 13. And that's it.
It feels like a rushing river or a waterway, like a flood almost. And it's like, how do we redirect the flood? Is it inevitable that it's going to just like transform the human being into some like, I don't know if it's hypersexualized. What are you going to say?
I think the best option we have right now is just to be honest with the system. That's why I think X is so great, because I truly believe that AGI is inevitable. And we do have a very limited time to now give the system an honest version of human consciousness, an honest version of humanity. And what's happened with the mainstream media and what's happened with social media run by these big tech overlords with vast amounts of censorship is that the system has been fed a very dishonest version of humanity and consciousness, which means those recommendations that we get back are not going to be ones that are recommendations for the truth of humanity and consciousness. So I think one of the best things we can do is be radically honest about all things right now.
Yeah, that's challenging in that like discretion is a value, and like some things are good not to be honest about, in that like I don't want people to know my kids' age, name, birthday, location at all times. Just like telling everyone everything isn't the same as being honest. Like you can say nothing and be honest. Your camera shut off there, just in case you didn't know. Oh, then it's back. Hello. So like because I was thinking as you were talking, like one way to make sure a kid doesn't see pornography is like he's tapped into the metaverse. His brain is attached to the machine, and the machine knows who he is. It's reading with artificial intelligence his algorithm. It knows where he is, what he's doing. So it prevents him from seeing the disruptive stuff as it knows as disruptive. But that feels very Klaus Schwabian.
Yeah, that would be very dangerous as well, because then it could stop you from seeing a variety of content.
Yes. And who's controlling the algorithm? And even if there's like a mass of humanity controlling it, that's still like a democratic approach, which is like mob approach.
Yeah, but I mean, at what point do we just have to put a certain amount of trust in whoever's controlling the algorithm, right? Because that's kind of what people are doing with Elon Musk right now, right? Is, okay, well, we hope he's the guy who everything he says, is true. And I believe that he believes the things he says about free speech on X and wanting what's best for humanity. But at a certain point, the algorithms are in the hands of everyone but us, with the exception of X.
Yeah, it just they're in the hands of individuals, which is concerning. That any one human or group of humans has the power to control the flow of information. Is like, I mean, I guess it's been like that forever in a way. Like who controlled the printing press until the printing press kind of changed it, but then they're like, no, now there's copyright. The Queen of England was like, you can't just give everybody. Now we're going to create this thing called copyright. They did that with.
Are you not a fan of IP laws?
I have mixed feelings on it. When data can be transmitted freely, I think that trying to stop it is like kind of like trying to stop like natural growth, like for the sake of profit in a way.
Yeah, like Disney's IP laws are insane. They threatened to sue a family who wanted to put a Spider-Man on their son's grave. Because their son was a big fan of Spider-Man. And Disney threatened to sue them and said, no way, Jose, because that does not represent the cheerful magic of Disney and Marvel and what have you. They're insane with their IP.
Did she post an image of it? Or was it just on a grave somewhere and someone saw it?
On a grave. I think they may have asked or something. Let me see.
That was the first mistake, is asking.
Oh, yeah, right?
Yeah, that there's some statement is like it's better to do it and then apologize than to ask for permission and be told no. And then
they had the full gravestone, temporary Spider-Man gravestone removed from cemetery. The family was told to remove it.
I think that stuff is a bit insane. Like trying to own information is kind of insane.
Yes.
And then like some of these contracts, like in the 90s and early 2000s, entertainment contracts would say, you hereby give the right to your likeness and person for all for in perpetuity forever across all universes and platforms. And people are like, what does that even mean, across all universes? Okay, yeah, whatever. I just want to do the show. Thanks for casting me. But now with deepfakes, these companies can take Chris Hemsworth, his likeness. They can create a movie in artificial intelligence and just have him as the star have him say whatever they want, have him do whatever they want. It could be pornography. He could be saying things he doesn't believe. No one would even know it's not him. And he's signed the rights away to the company, which I think is a human rights. These contracts have become human rights violations.
Yeah, they have in many ways, especially, Taylor Swift just won that battle. I think Alex Soros and their organization owned a lot of Taylor Swift's music and art for a long time as well. And I think that's her whole thing. She's recreating all that now and taking back ownership of it. So some things she does is super cool. But I do think there is kind of a positive aspect to destroying this hyper consciousness of self that we've created. People are very obsessed with their image and the projection of their image nowadays in a way that we haven't seen at a mass scale in all of history, I believe. For the most part, we've kind of given everyone a paintbrush for their own self-portrait, and that hasn't necessarily been good or honest. So I think there might be a positive side to that, as dystopian as it sounds.
To the destruction of the self-obsession?
Yes. I mean, everyone's...
Oh, what? How do you perceive that destruction or that decoupulation taking place?
Well, if anything can be created out of your image, people are probably going to, especially the newer generation, be a lot more cautious about how much, one, they're putting out there of themselves, and two, just this idea of how much protection you can have over this self-portrait you're putting on there, this digital self-portrait you're putting out there of yourself.
Yeah, because like, in a way, like, I don't care what you make me look like, you make me say or do. Have fun with it. But I used to care. I used to care a lot more before I had a kid, and then it's like after I stopped caring about myself as much, I really stopped reading comments as well. I just didn't care as much. So I think that's a good thing. I learned how to see like the collective consciousness in the response in the comments. Like if they say like, "Oh, fuck Ian, screw that guy, I hate him," I'm like, okay, there was something that went on in this area that was not enjoyed by that. It doesn't mean I was doing it wrong. It just means it wasn't. But I don't like take it.
There's also
personally.
Another aspect of that, Ian, is there's when people follow you. Followers are a really weird thing to me because so many people conflate it with like fans, and it's really not. It's just people who are paying attention to what you're doing. And at different times in your life, you're going to grow on the internet. And I learned this through being on the internet as long as I have. But you might not be the best person at times. I may say things that come across wrong. I may be in a bad mood. I may have been more angry, a couple of years ago in my life. And there are people who are going to cling to different parts of you that might not be the best. They may be going through their own things in their life. This guy may be going through a divorce, doesn't have any of his kids, so you don't really know what anybody else is going through either. Social media has such a limited scope. And we're really not able to see into the lives of anybody who's commenting. We have no idea who they are. We have no idea if they're good people. We have no idea where they're coming from. Maybe they just lost their mother. Maybe. So I tend to just not care as much because I don't place as much of a negative connotation on even nasty comments because I feel like a lot of times people just take out their lives online and other people.
It could be AI. Like it could be intentionally AI trying to sabotage your psyche.
It could. That is a very real possibility. We know there are bot farms. We know there are AIs out there that do this. Maybe not to target Ian Crossland or Ashley St. Clair, but they do this. And I think we'll see an increase in that as it becomes more publicly available as well. I think people will have more access to targeting people that they just don't like with that sort of technology.
Or like a positive comment, because sometimes I'll try not to take it personally, but some of the positive comments I'm like, thank you. I feel better. You saw that. I thank you for acknowledging. But if that's an AI trying to manipulate me to be like, now I trust this account because they said, and like, I try not to look at the names of the accounts too much either sometimes, but some people will just be repetitively cool. And I'm like, all right, this is probably a real person.
Yeah. Well, as Tucker Carlson had just said recently, you really should only care about the opinion of those who love you, who really love you and care about you and know you. Because even the people who are supporting you, when I look back on some things that I did that were not necessarily the best decisions, there were a lot of, reply guys or people who were like, this is awesome, cool, keep at it. And, in retrospect, you're like, oh, that like wasn't the best behavior to be encouraged. So as of late, I only care of the people around me, what their opinions are of things, the people that I've tried to surround myself with people who I think are of sound mind and have good virtues and values. But besides that, I just try to drown out the noise from the comments and online. I think it's just, we were not made for so many inputs. I think it's making people very mentally ill to have all of these inputs all of the time.
Yeah, it's got to be jarring. They said, someone was saying, like, you are a combination of your 6 closest friends.
Yes.
And like,
Yes.
whatever. To tack on to what we were saying about like not really caring about how people perceive me as much anymore, like my digital avatar, I don't really care that much. In that I don't get as upset, but the problem is when society thinks I said something I didn't because it was like a deep fake, and then if the law gets involved and they're like, we're gonna take this deep fake seriously, and it's like, that's not cool.
That is scary.
Like
that
Alex,
is a terrifying concept.
The way that people can say you did something and then take a piece out of context, and then it can be like, that's weird. That's it.
Yeah, and I always say, I don't do a whole lot of podcasts because I always feel like podcasts are the quickest way to get canceled because people take so many things out of context. But it's also just learning to speak in a way that can't be taken out of context, stopping mid-sentence to interject something so they can't clip it. It is an art form in a lot of different ways, or just maybe just a learned skill.
Yeah. There's a value to not saying too much, to choosing
but
your words.
On the flip side, I think we should say everything all the time. I think people should just be less judgmental, because most people, you get to know them and they're a few drinks in, and you end up finding out that not everyone had the childhood they wanted, and not everyone had the life that they wanted, and nobody really talks about the things that join us together as humans. We don't talk about emotions. We put negative connotations on any emotion other than happiness, which I think is really damaging. I think we should be honest about all emotions, happiness, anger, sadness, grief. I think we should be honest about that without, absorbing a victim complex. But I think too often there's a facade of being happy and doing well all the time. And nobody's really able to discuss sadness or just being a human in general without falling into some sort of victim complex because of the culture we have nowadays. But it didn't used to be that way.
Yeah, this concept of trauma bonding, I never really thought of it until 5 years ago or something. And now I became kind of resistant to the idea of trauma bonding, like talking about the past hurt. Because it was like, well, I don't want to open up a box that I can't close, that then I become the villain in the story because I was involved in opening up the box of the trauma. So I'm like, but at the same time, you're right. You cannot, if you avoid that stuff, it's inhuman.
Yeah. And I think it actually makes the quote unquote bad emotions worse, because when you're told for so long, the goal is to be happy, do what makes you happy. You have this idea that being sad is really, really bad. Feeling any emotion other than happiness is really, really bad. And so then I think it sets people more in this mindset of, what am I going to do? I shouldn't be sad. I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't be this. I shouldn't feel anything other than happiness. And it compounds the issues, in my opinion.
I've been crying a lot lately, not a lot, but I've been crying lately, and it's actually pretty therapeutic. Like it can get a little dark, like just going through it. I just went through a breakup that was powerful. It's like she's my best friend. Like it's like powerful. It's kind of painful, but like it's right. It's a good thing, but it hurts. But like it's just okay. It's okay to cry. Like it's natural, and maybe it's the Adderall in society that's maybe white people aren't in touch with it as much. But like without lows, you can't. Artificial highs are not where it's at. Like that.
No.
It's going to create an artificial low that's like way too.
Yeah, or you look on somewhere like Instagram, and it's all like a facade of everyone looks so happy, right? It's the highlights of everybody's lives, and we don't really see reality. And that might not necessarily be sadness or grief or anger. It might just be, normal. Like, I had an okay day today.
What? Yeah, that'd be great. Those would be great posts. Like just
I
just
know,
shows
a
you like
really
eating for a
mediocre
second.
day.
What
But
do you?
you see, Gen Z actually likes a lot of that content. They like a lot of the candid, non-filtered, non-edited content nowadays, which is particularly interesting. But like the Instagrams of Gen Z look very different from, you know, when I was younger with the filters and the Facetune and stuff. It's very different. It's very candid. They like the Polaroid feel of things. And a very normal Emma Chamberlain type influencer. So I think there is a desire for that from the
I
new
had
generation.
a video on YouTube in the early days of like '07 that I was very proud of called, I think it was Carrot, and I'm just eating. It's just me eating a carrot. I forgot the camera was on.
We
I
need
don't
more
think.
carrot videos, Ian.
Yeah, just eat, just enjoy the food. No one needs to even
But you
know.
know, that's why I always find your commentary, especially on Timcast, very refreshing, because it's very honest and very, you know, just normal thoughts, you know, that are coming to your head. As it's not overproduced. It's not something that you're like, how is everybody going to think about this? You know, I'm going to get a good clip out of this sort of mentality. You're very honest, and I
I
do
feel
appreciate that.
I feel like I'm like the stone door is closing, and I'm like holding it up. That's when I act like that, because it's easy to kind of create a character and to like do what gets you the clicks and the views, but like I want to like hold it open so people can be normal, get through the door, be normal.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's
What do you think?
awesome.
What do you think about them getting rid of downvotes, viewable downvotes on videos and stuff in general?
I that's another thing. Like, right, we can only process positive feedback. It's just overwhelming to have negative feedback. I don't think that's good. I don't think that's a positive. I think that's a net negative and going to be detrimental to hide people from failure, because failure is a reality of life. People aren't going to like you. A lot of people aren't going to like you. Most people probably won't like you. You know, that's the reality of life. And they've created something that is so far from the human condition and reality that I just think they don't even understand the impacts that this is going to have on people's psyches for years to come.
And like most people not liking you doesn't mean they dislike you. It just means that they don't.
Yes,
like, they're neutral.
You're just not their cup of tea, and that's okay. Like, it is okay to not be someone's cup of tea. And with social media, you know, we always want to perform all the time for everybody, and it's bananas to want an audience. It's bananas that, you know, I think about that sometimes. I have 800,000 followers on X. That's insane to have that many people watching me or doing that. That's so crazy, and it's not necessarily always a positive thing. But you have many kids that's their top desires, to have that audience.
I was thinking maybe. Oh, what's that?
Yeah, that's the top. I think it's the top career choice in the United States, is for kids to be a YouTuber, streamer, TikToker, influencer.
And it should be like something doing along with that. I think like that influencing thing can augment your real, what you really do. Like, do you play music? Do you build spacecraft? Do you plumb tubes? What do you do that's cool? And then influence people with what you do. I love that.
I think that's a very positive influence, an influencer. I think there's many influencers that are incredibly positive, but when you just want to be, when you're a generation that was told, you know, me, express yourself, and then they grow up and realizing nobody really cares about what they have to say. Bo Burnham spoke about this a lot. You know, the me generation grow up and realize nobody cares about what they have to say. That's why they flock to entertainers. That's why they want to have an audience, because this is what they were told. Everyone cares about what you say. And the reality is many people don't.
That was, you retweeted that Bo Burnham.
Yeah, it's great. Bo Burnham's fantastic.
He is awesome.
Yeah.
He got really famous really early on too. So he knows what he's talking about.
Yes. He's got a fantastic bit called Art is Dead too that I love.
Okay. Was it like a set, like a long thing?
No, it's just a couple minutes. It's like 2 minutes long. It's fantastic. It just speaks about, you know, being an entertainer and how often we give so much money and emphasis to entertainers rather than things that matter, or feeding families who are hungry because we want our name in lights.
Yeah, man. It's like genetic. Like if the tribe loves me, then I'll survive longer.
Yes. or just, just waste. I mean, just lack of humanity. Even look at the video that Joe Biden just posted from the White House with that ridiculous, very expensive production. It looks like the Nutcracker from the Hunger Games. It looks like hell on earth. And watching this video, if you're in media, this costs so much money to produce and film and hire a creative team for this, a production team for this. And there's people who, can't afford to feed their families right now in this country. There's people who don't have homes. There's people, it's just so dystopian to me what we focus on.
I thought for sure the Hunger Games was going to be like, okay, let's never do that ever. Do not become debaucherous and luxurious in the Capitol while people are suffering. Now we know.
It looked like a scene from the Capitol in the Hunger Games.
But I guess, like you're saying, DC had been like that when you were there before inflation, 4 years ago. It seemed like things started to kind of scale up a little bit faster 4 years ago. Probably COVID when they printed the $6 trillion. But that it's been debaucherous and my buddy actually in 2003 or something, he worked in DC and he was like, this is a drinking town. People just party.
They just party, the drinking, the drugs, everything.
I was thinking when we were talking about most people don't like you, but they don't dislike you necessarily. They just don't particularly like you. Either they're neutral. That maybe we need up votes, down votes, and neutral. Like, I don't like this, then I dislike this, and I like this.
Yeah, it's like those airport bathroom voting things. You see, they have like the smiley face and then the straight face and then the mad face. Yeah, you ever seen those?
No, that's
they're
exactly.
Great.
I'm going to propose it to Bill. That's at the bathroom. What are you voting on?
Yeah, the
exactly?
Airport bathrooms. They have little iPads at most of them, like walking out, where you vote on the cleanliness. And it could be either a happy face, a straight face, or an angry face.
Dude, people aren't washing their hands and touching that screen. That's nasty. Like, how do you think about the cleanliness? Like, well, if I touch the screen, it's going to be negative.
I don't think I've ever seen someone, and I've flown over 250,000 miles this year. I don't think I've ever seen someone leave an airport bathroom and not wash their hands. I think that'd be rather embarrassing since there's so many people there.
What have you been flying around for so much?
Oh my goodness, there's just a million things for work, for speaking engagements, and like I just got back from Italy, speaking at the Free Europe conference, which was amazing, but just a lot of travel.
You went out to the border, I saw, with Vivek, or you met up with him down there?
Yes. Vivek's team reached out to me about going down to the border. Again, I had just been down there. And that was fantastic, but it's crazy to see it in person too, because you hear everything, you never know what's media manipulation. But when I had gone down there and I'm watching like 400 migrants cross in the span of 30 minutes, I'm talking to these migrants, I'm talking to these people. It is just insane how little regard our country has for this, how little regard Joe Biden, this administration in particular. This is worse than it ever was under Obama even. It's very particular to this administration, but we have a crisis at the border. But it's not just here. When I went to Europe, they're dealing with the same issues, especially in Italy too. A lot of people coming over from Libya. Obviously, there's a lot of coast in Italy, and there's nothing they can do about it here or there because of these asylum and refugee laws. In Italy, they have these refugee treaties, so they legally can't tell them not to come. The president can't do anything. Here we have the asylum laws, so as soon as they're on United States soil and they're saying they're seeking asylum, we have to give them a shot. These asylum and refugee laws and treaties internationally are destroying Western countries, because then what happens is the NGOs fund them coming over here. This is not a conspiracy. This is well documented, and I've spoken to, not only people down at our border. I've talked to leaders all over Europe, in Italy, all over Europe as well. This is destroying them because these NGOs also coach a lot of these migrants on what to say to claim asylum or refugee status. And so even people who are not necessarily asylum seekers or refugees, they know exactly what to say to get in here. And we know jack squat about any of these people.
Oh.
So on an international scale, this needs to be dealt with internationally.
Like all they got to do is say, like, they don't have, I mean, I don't know how someone that's truly fleeing asylum would be able to prove it, but they just say.
Exactly. Yes.
But like economic, that's what it concerns me, is like economic instability isn't like, doesn't create like economic refugees is not the same as someone whose homes were blown up and they're fleeing for preserving
No, but they
life.
conflate the two all the time. They just don't care. You know, there's young men coming across saying they just wanted to make more money here, and it's just too hard to live in these other countries. But then these NGOs are funding them coming here, funding their trains, planes, automobiles, everything. They're funding them to come to our southern border. Our southern border is essentially an open border to the world. A majority of the people coming across our southern border are not coming from Mexico.
I feel like if we can harvest human body heat for electricity, like piezoelectric heat, then maybe those people will be contributing to society. If like your shoes or something, like just stepping on the ground is producing an electrical charge, which is powering a battery, or your clothing moving like it's graphene infused, a superconductor where just moving around is producing
that graphene.
Yeah, I sure do. I don't have any. It's upstairs. That maybe the human body itself can contribute without even having to work. Like, what is work but the production of joules of energy?
I don't know that that's going to work either, Ian. I mean, there's a lot of, it's just economically, culturally, it just doesn't work.
The using the human body to produce electricity?
No, having, an open border in the way that we do.
It freaking terrifies me. Like it does feel like late stage Rome where the barbarian hordes were just coming across. They started hiring like mercenaries from foreign countries to fight because the people didn't want to fight for the country. I don't want to like put that on people because we're different. We're the United States in the modern age with the internet. We can change things rapidly. Like what do they call it? Mass formation. Mass formation is since the radio. We've been able to mass formate, and it doesn't have to be psychotic. We can mass formate for good.
We'll see.
Yeah, we can. That doesn't mean we will, but we have the opportunity to like drastically alter people's consciousness. We got some super chats I wanted to bring up. This one's from Rockstar Podcast. He said you should do a virtual background that is artist submitted and showcase a different artist every week.
Nice.
That's
a good idea. Start with Rockstar Podcast.
Thanks, Rockstar. That's a great idea. Craig Morning. Howdy, Ian and Ashley. Loving the streams and guests. I own a habitat restoration business out of New York and have studied geology and ecology for many years. Would love to come on and talk about science.
Oh,
that's pretty cool.
Cool. Look, you got another guest, Ian.
Yeah, habitat restoration. Thanks, Craig. Send me a message on Twitter, man. Brewmaster Monk said, is there a nonprofit that maintains a whitelist of child-friendly sites and services, passwords, everything else, or create new protocol that requires IRL vetting like a .kid? Are you familiar with anything like nonprofits that?
I am not. I wish I could help you, Brewmaster Monk.
That's pretty cool.
Maybe you could start it.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. You would definitely have to vet, because trusting the service is the problem. I'm into like trustless services where oh, here it is, Brewmaster Monk again. When it comes to being online, only facts matter. Anyone trying to appeal to your emotions is either a shill, a bot, a troll, or irrelevant.
I don't know about that, man. Emotions are a big part of being a human. I don't think emotions should drive everything. Obviously facts should be considered and facts should probably hold more weight, but
I agree that I think emotions are important because well, it all matters in that it's all matter. It's all either plasma, electrons, solid, liquid, gas, like everything is matter. But I know what you mean. It doesn't matter. It's not as relevant. You're saying that the emotions are less relevant than the facts, but sometimes the way you feel about the fact is vastly important if you're going to reiterate the fact, because you might see a fact and have you got to take a big shit and you're like, oh, I'm in a horrible mood. That fact pissed me off. And then when you go tell everyone, you're like, and that fact is pissing me. Or you might say, this is a fact that's a problem, but here's a solution because you're in a great mood. And protecting your emotions, I think, is a really important part of navigating the internet. Like not allowing your brain to be exposed to certain content. Like, do you even watch some of the stuff on Twitter, like the videos of like?
I have a lot of things muted that I just don't want to see.
That's how I've gone that route.
I just don't want to see it.
This has been a really great podcast, man. That was really fun.
Thank you, Ian.
That was spectacular. We went almost an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Did you have any other things you wanted to talk about or ideas you were thinking?
That's it. I gotta pop off here. But it's been lovely, and I will see you in Arizona very soon.
Hell yeah. Everyone else, like the video, subscribe, share with your friends, tell everyone hello. Ashley St. Clair. Check her out. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Ian.